Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a weekly program every Sunday here on HORUFADHI Media, where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program, and where you can find other exclusive programs such as Behind the Scenes and Mahahi Salah, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into the news. We kick off in Spain, where Spanish prosecutors have dropped their investigation into the deaths of more than 20 migrants last June at the border between Morocco and the Spanish enclave city of Melilla. Saying in a statement on Friday they found no evidence of criminal misconduct by Spanish security forces. The prosecutors said they spent 6 months investigating what happened when hundreds of migrants, some estimates say around 2,000, stormed the Melilla border fence in northwest Africa from the Moroccan side in an attempt to reach the European soil. At least 23 migrants were officially reported dead, though human rights groups say the number was higher. The Spanish prosecutor said it cannot be concluded that the conduct of Spanish security forces involved increased the threat to life and the well-being of the immigrants, so no charge of reckless homicide can be brought. The migrants were hostile and violent, the prosecutor's statement said. Hundreds of men, some wielding sticks, climbed over the fence from the Moroccan territory and were corralled into a border crossing area. When they managed to break through the gate to the Spanish side, a stampede apparently led to the crushing of many people. The Moroccan police launched tear gas and beat men with batons, even when some were prone on the ground. Spanish guards surrounded a group that managed to get through before apparently sending them back. The clash ended with African men, clearly injured or even dead, piled on top of one another, while Moroccan police in riot gear locked on. Spanish prosecutors said that at no point did Spanish security officers have a reason to believe that there were people at risk who required help. Spanish security officers who turned 470 of the immigrants back to Morocco did so in accordance with their duty and in conformity with Spanish immigration law, the statement said. So-called pushbacks, the forcible return of people across an international border without an assessment of their rights to apply for asylum or the protection, violating both international and EU law, are contentious issues in Europe. Now, prosecutors did fault some security officers who threw rocks at the immigrants, recommending disciplinary procedures against them. Now, Amnesty International said earlier this month that the handling of the investigation by both Morocco and Spain, which has remained mostly silent on the matter, smacks of a cover-up and racism. Now next we move on to Somalia, where the federal government announced the first group of 5,000 Somali soldiers who were sent to Eritrea for military training have returned home. Defense Minister Abdulqadir Mohammed Noor on Wednesday confirmed that the first group's arrival in Somalia's capital Mogadishu and said the rest will arrive in the coming days. They will be part of the ongoing fight against extremist group Al-Shabaab in several regions of the country, the minister said, referring to an offensive by Somali forces and allies against fighters who for years have held large parts of the country and regularly attacked the capital. Now, the minister did not say how many recruits returned home from training in Eritrea, which the previous administration under former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo initially sent. The recruits were first sent to Eritrea in 2019, and President Farmajo announced the troops publicly as he transferred office to incumbent President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud during their official ceremony. Now, video surfaced online showcasing Somali soldiers in trucks traveling through the capital. Some parents initially feared their sons had been sent to neighboring Ethiopia's embattled Tigray region following a spread of fake news where Eritrean forces were fighting alongside Ethiopian government forces against Tigray ones, and Somali government has officially and consistently denied its troops had been used in combat. And just most recently this year, under incumbent president, Somali spokesman for the Villa Somalia, the presidential palace that is, has officially confirmed these to be rumors. Now, there have been new protests that were seen this week where Somali mothers claimed their sons were being enlisted into the military without consent and not knowing their whereabouts afterwards. However, the government has not officially responded to these fresh allegations. Now over to North Africa, where anti-terrorism judge in Tunisia has ordered the imprisonment of former Prime Minister Ali Layaraid, vice president of the popular Islamist opposition party Ennahda, days after a country held a legislative election marked by a very low turnout. Now, the judge's decision, announced last week Monday, is linked to a case in which other Ennahda officials are suspected of involving Tunisians who went to fight alongside extremists in Syria, according to Ines Hareth, a lawyer who has worked with a group of attorneys defending the former Prime Minister. Now, Ennahda, which had had the largest number of lawmakers in the previous parliament, denounced the move as a political attack and called for the former Prime Minister to be freed. The party has said its vice president was deliberately targeted in a vain and flagrant attempt by authorities and President Kais Saied to cover the failure of Saturday's vote, which was the election's first round of balloting. Now, only 11.22% of Tunisian voters casted their ballots, according to Farouk Bouskar, president of Tunisia's election authority. That is about 1 million voters out of 9 million registered. Now, the Tunisian election authority said 21 candidates were elected in the first round, while 133 candidates are qualified for the second round of voting scheduled for January 19th. Definitive results will be announced on March 3rd, he said. Now, opposition parties, including the Salvation Front coalition that Ennahda belongs to, boycotted the election, saying it was part of Said's effort to consolidate power. The decision not to participate in the vote likely will lead to a new legislature that is subservient to the president, whom critics accuse of authoritarian drift. In his first public comments on the election, President Said rejected criticism of the low turnout and accused opponents of trying to cast doubts on whether the new parliament would be representative of voters' views. Now, on the economic front, Tunisia expects to reduce its fiscal deficit to 5.5% next year from a forecast of 7.7% this year, driven by austerity measures that could pave the way for a final deal with the International Monetary Fund and a rescue package. The North African country has been in urgent need of international help for months as it grapples with a crisis in public finances that has raised fears it may default on debt and has contributed to shortages of food and fuel, according to government critics. The economy minister said on Friday that economic growth in 2023 would be at 1.8% compared to 2.5% expected this year. The country's external borrowing needs next year will increase by 34% to 16 billion dinars or $5.2 billion, while public debt is expected to rise by 44.4%. Tunisia has reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF for $1.9 billion rescue package in exchange for unpopular reforms, including cutting food and energy subsidies and overhauling public companies. It aims to reach a final deal in a couple of weeks. Now, painful reforms ahead for Tunisians, as according to the next year's budget published by the Economy Ministry, Tunisia intends to reduce subsidy expenditure by 26.4%, and the government is also seeking to raise tax revenue by 12.5% to 40 billion dinars, with the rate for some jobs increasing to 19% from 13%. And the powerful UGTT union, with about 1 million members, has said it would reject the finance law if it was passed, adding it could cause a social explosion as Tunisians struggle with poverty and inflation, which hit a record 9.8% last month. Now, over to South Africa, where incumbent President Cyril Ramaphosa has been re-elected as the leader of the ruling African National Congress Party. And Ramaphosa beat his rival, former Health Minister Zweli Mkhize, by 2,476 votes to 1,897 votes from a total of 4,386 votes cast by party-led delegates from across the country. And Ramaphosa supporters burst into celebrations as a result were announced on Monday at the ANC's crucial leadership conference in Johannesburg. This comes as a welcome victory from Ramaphosa, who has been mired in a scandal and facing calls to step down as president of the country and to be replaced as the leader of the ANC. Last week, he survived a vote to start impeachment proceedings against him over a parliamentary report that said he may have broken anti-corruption laws by keeping undeclared sums of dollars at his farm, failing to declare their theft. Ramaphosa's victory paves the way for him to run for re-election to a second term as South Africa's president in the national election set for 2024. The crucial ANC conference has been marked by bitter divisions and scandals surrounding Ramaphosa, Mkhize, and other leaders. With crippling nationwide power cuts of more than 7 hours a day, an unemployment rate of 35%, and widespread reports of corruption, Ramaphosa and the newly elected ANC leadership have many challenges to address as the party heading the government and the legislature. Now, over to Burkina Faso, where the government has declared the UN's coordinator in the country a persona non grata, the foreign ministry said on Friday. Italian diplomat Barbara Manzi, the United Nations resident coordinator in Burkina Faso, is declared persona non grata in the territory of Burkina Faso, the ministry said, without giving any official reason for the expulsion. She is therefore requested to leave Burkina Faso today, 23rd December 2022, read the statement. Now, Foreign Minister Olivier Ramba said Manzi's decision to unilaterally withdraw non-essential UN staff from the capital justified the move. The withdrawal discredits and tarnishes the image of the country and puts off potential investors. It's unthinkable. We have to take responsibility now, the Foreign Minister told national television. Now, the Foreign Minister later accused Manzi of painting a negative picture of the security situation in Burkina Faso, which has been grappling with the security crisis and escalating violence since 2015. Foreign Minister Rwanda said Manzi had predicted chaos in Burkina Faso in the coming months, adding that the United Nations should act as a support structure as the West African state battles a bloody jihadist insurgency. A poor landlocked country in the heart of the Sahel, Burkina Faso has since 2015 been plagued by attacks perpetrated by jihadists linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State group. The insurgency has claimed thousands of lives and driven around 2 million people from their homes. In addition to the request for the withdrawal of non-essential staff, Manzi is also accused of attempting to influence negatively and of interfering in political affairs of Burkina Faso. The foreign minister added that Burkina Faso maintained a very good cooperation with the United Nations, irrespective of Manzi's expulsion. Now, Manzi had been in the role of humanitarian coordinator in Burkina Faso since August 2021. The UN official expulsion comes days after 2 French nationals working for Burkina company were expelled, with authorities accusing them of espionage. Media organizations in Burkina Faso have also accused the ruling junta of clampdown after Radio France Internationale, or RFI, which is widely followed in the West African state, was suspended. Frustration at the mounting military toll against jihadists has sparked 2 coups this year by disgruntled officers, most recently in September when Captain Ibrahim Traoré ousted Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry. Now, last month, Burkina Prime Minister de Tembele said he hoped to diversify partnerships relations until we find the right formula for the interests of Burkina Faso, he said. He also said that some partners had not always been loyal, without naming any countries. In July, Burkina Faso's neighbor Mali, also embroiled in a security crisis linked to jihad insurgency, expelled Olivier Salgado, a spokesman for the UN's peacekeeping mission in Mali. The ruling junta there accused him of publishing unacceptable information on the arrest of 49 Ivorian soldiers in the capital, Bamako. The United Nations has said Burkina Faso had no grounds for ordering senior UN official to leave the country, and that the doctrine of persona non grata could not be applied to her. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres learned with regret about Burkina Faso's decision and expressed full confidence in Ms. Manzi's commitment and professionalism, his spokesman said in a statement on Saturday. Now, the UN provides some essential services to Burkina Faso, including supplying food to thousands of malnourished children, as insecurity has crippled local economies, caused mass hunger, and restricted access for aid organizations. Now, finally, over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where M23 rebels on Friday began withdrawing from some territories they had seized in recent offensives, as part of what one of the group's leaders termed a goodwill gesture in a ceasefire brokered by the East African's regional leaders. Rebels handed over positions they had occupied around Kimbuba, some 20 kilometers north of the Congolese city of Goma, to commanding officers of the East African Community Regional Force. It's a gesture of goodwill that the M23 will make today, Colonel Imani and Zenze, one of the military leaders of M23, said during the ceremony. It is in the name of peace and a gesture that is part of the recommendations resulting from the mini-summit of heads of state held in Angola in November 2022, he added. We hope that the government in Kinshasa will seize this opportunity. That the government of Congo was not immediately available for a comment. Now, a ceasefire agreement reached by regional leaders in Angola called for the rebels to withdraw from recently seized positions and for thousands of displaced people to be allowed to return to their homes. Some 450,000 people have been forced to flee since March due to the recent fighting. And that is the top stories on the program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please tune in next week for all the top stories of the African continent.